you can deliver the best product. You can have the best customer service. You can have the best marketing. But if you're not actually creating something that the customers want, or you're creating the right product for your customer market, you're going to fail.
Welcome to another episode of Relentless Life on Your Terms Season 5. Join me, James Maitland, who's the managing partner at Salvo Group. Thanks for being here, James.
Thanks, great to be here.
Now, obviously, very impressive resume. You started the Salvo Group in 2009. You've been responsible for delivering over 4,000 apartments, 200,000 square meters in commercial space as well, which is over a $3.5 billion value. So, wow, that's quite impressive.
It sounds like big numbers, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean,
yeah.
it literally feels like it was just yesterday that we did it. And, you know, you drive around or walk around the city and you sort of look at these buildings and you say like, wow, that's like we created that. And I think it's one of those things that when you're in the moment and you're doing it, it just becomes second nature to you and you almost become immune to, you know, the enormity of the task and what you've actually done. And it's really only till you sit back and reflect on it. Hearing you throw out those stats is, you know, I almost thought to myself, hey, I like this guy. I want to meet him. He sounds like a good bloke. So it's been a long time, but it also feels like that was just yesterday.
I guess there's so much to do, and you came back in 2009. What got you into real estate? Because I know you studied as well, architecture. You were a chartered accountant as well. What got you into real estate?
Look, it's a really good question. And I think, you know, I finished high school, even coming towards the end of high school, had no real clear thought or direction. You know, a lot of my friends were, this is what I want to do. It's clear, it's concise. There's no confusion. I was unsure. You know, one of my passions that I wanted to be a professional surfer. I wanted to play for the Wallabies. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough at either of those sports. So, you know, when you have a lot of dreams and you're thinking about a lot of things, you know, you kind of just career between different things. But my father was an architect. He did his own small developments. So it was kind of always something that I'd grown up with. And, you know, it sort of just came naturally, having seen it, been around it, you know, been looking at plans, you know, spending time going onto work sites with him, that it was sort of almost like a safety net. And so I probably never thought about it as, hey, this is what I want to do, until it kind of became one of those things when I said, you know what, actually, I think I can add some value here and I actually really enjoy doing it. And it just sort of, you know, one thing led to another. And I guess that was, 20 plus years ago. And here I am now. You know, I couldn't pin it ever that I said, that's it. I want to be in real estate. I want to be in development. I want to be in sales, whatever it might be of, you know, what we're doing today. It really was sort of an evolution, and you do something and you say, hey, that was a good outcome. What about if we do this? What about if you do this? And I think that's really how a lot of things come in that organic nature, and really you kind of fall into it and say, hey, I love doing this.
So maybe when you're going out on all those sites with your father was being seed planted in you that I do like this, and then you took a real liking to it. You mentioned sports before, and I want to touch base on that. So you try to become a professional sportsman. Funny how I was like that in snooker. I was kind of very good, but not good enough.
Yep.
I was very good competitively, and I did fighting as well, same. But a lot of disciplines I thought were transferred to business. Did you find that a lot of the things you learned from your sporting career you'll be able to use as your current role now?
Look, 100%. I am the biggest believer in the discipline, and I think sport really builds that into you. You know, I loved surfing. I grew up on Bondi Beach, so that was pretty much every single day without fail, rain, hail or shine. I was in there going for a surf. I loved rugby. You know, I played that throughout school. And one of the things where I think the turning point for me that I think about, you know, what were some of the lessons I learned as a child was, you know, I went to a private school for high school from year 7 onwards, and sport was compulsory. Now, I love sport, so it wasn't something where I was like, oh, I've got to do sport. But actually that discipline where, you know, previously, if I had another sporting activity on the weekend, I just skip that rugby game. But where it was compulsory, it was you've committed to the team, you turn up unless you're dying, you're in hospital or whatever. You turn up, you've made a commitment, and you must show up for your fellow team members. And I think as a young child, that was something that I really took on board, and I realized that commitment that you make, and that it's not just about you. Playing in a team is a great thing. It's great to share the victories. It's also great to be able to commiserate in the losses, but to have that camaraderie and so forth there, I think it's great. So for me, with my kids, I love, the fact even when they're complaining to me, Dad, I don't feel like it. I'm like, you committed, you go, you play, because I think that's discipline in life, right? How many people just give up and quit on things? I think to be successful in anything, whether it just be a passion, whether it be business, whatever, you've got to commit, you've got to give it your all, and you've got to continue to have that persistence to keep it going.
To keep showing up. I think that is the biggest key lesson. A lot of times you want to wake up and you might have a big task or work. You don't want to get up and go. But the real champions in any sport or work, I think, are the ones that show up regardless and do the work regardless. Because you don't feel 100% every day.
Yeah. Look, and you don't. And I think, I love the idea, or, I guess, motivational speakers and some of those things. I love the concept. Some are really just a bit blur.
Out there, Ara.
Yeah. And, but there's a few things that I've heard over the years. One that really stuck with me was Kobe Bryant talking about how he got so good at basketball. And I'm sure you've heard it, where he basically talks about, I get up at 5 a.m.
Yep.
I go out, I train for 2 hours, I come home, I eat, I rest. I go out, I train for 2 hours, come back, eat, rest, go out, train for 2 hours, come back, eat, rest. He said everybody else, they sleep in, they get up at, say, 8, 9, they go out, they train, come back, rest, they go out, they train, they come back and they rest. And he said, every day I'm doing 2 extra hours that nobody else is. He said, after a month, I'm 60 hours ahead. After a year, I'm X numbers. He said, after a couple of years, you will never catch me.
He's one of my favorites. I study him intensely. Khabib as well, a fighter. I don't know if you've done MMA. And I remember reading a book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It talks about the 10,000 hours to master any skill or craft.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed in learning about that. And I thought to myself, wow, the power of compounding your learning. If you work 38 hours, most people do, they work 38 hours a week. It takes you 5 years, 3 weeks, and 6 hours to master those 10,000 hours. If you do 80 hours, you do it in just over 2 years. Imagine you compound that over 20 years, how much, it's exactly the same principle. Kobe understood that. And also he said when he was younger, didn't have many friends, so he was just dribbling the ball to sleep.
Yeah.
And look what an outcome. I love those stories.
Yeah.
I'm actually obsessed in listening to them. I love all their stories.
Yeah.
And Kobe is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, like I love him. For my kids who are a bit younger, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, he says a similar thing. So for them, Kobe's he's a bit old dad, not, the latest, but they love The Rock. And I think, all these guys, it doesn't matter whether it's sport, it's business, whatever it is. It's about, one, having the passion, but having that dedication and showing up when you don't feel like it, and, putting in that effort, because hard work pays off, right? It's one of those things, it always pays off. It doesn't matter. Sure, you need a bit of skill, you need a bit of raw talent in whatever you do, but more often than not, that talent or skills can be wasted. But the people that just keep going over and over, they might not be the best in the world, but they're going to be in that top level where they say, you know what, that person's just good, consistent, and doing it in whatever they do. And I think that's probably the best lesson that sport gave to me. And I think for a lot of people, it's too easy that you hear people just give up on things, right?
And sometimes they say you're so close to actually getting there. Michael Phelps, another good example, he said for 5 years in a row, he was in the pool for 365 days a year. That's incredible. He goes, Chris, I was in the pool every day. And when I watched that, he's won 23 gold medals. You see the hard work. And yeah, it's incredible to see that.
Hmm.
So obviously that did play a big factor in your business career.
Yeah.
Seeing the discipline required, being a team, I guess a team member. So then you got into real estate. Obviously, you're looking back, sold over 4,000 apartments. What's on the horizon? What's next?
Look, I think, it's really interesting when people, you meet people for the first time, or even when I'm around my kids and I hear them say, "Oh, what does your dad do?" It's very hard to pinpoint it because we do so many things. And I think the best way that I've been able to sum it up is, across everything that we do, we have sort of one goal here at Salvo, which is to help people create a home. And that's, a sort of a single vision, a single why. And, so we can sort of look across, obviously we've got a very large development business, and that's our core business. But we've also got a lot of services businesses as well, and they're all complementary to that journey in helping people create that home. So it can be as simple as, someone might start their journey with our organisation by just getting a home loan, refinancing an existing home loan, and we hope that we can add that value throughout there, that we can really help them. So, what's next? The world's our oyster, but I think what we really want to do is, grow all those businesses. But one of the things that I've really sort of learnt over that time is, yes, hard work and dedication pays off, but you also need to really think about what is your core competency and what can you do really well, and what are the things that you perhaps can't do so well. And you need to be able to build a team around that to say, right, like, one person can't do it all, right? How many times you hear people say, "I wish I could clone myself," or "I could have done that better or faster," or whatever. Yeah, you probably could, but you're only one person, and until you invent a time machine, there's still only 24 hours a
will
day.
Outwork you, yeah.
And I think that's something that we've really evolved here, in Salvo. And I think as a general thing, that's probably, if I look back at a younger me, and people often say, like, what advice would you give? I think I'd probably, say to myself, you can't do it all, and you need to really think about what can you do really well, and where can you actually say you can deliver that real value, and the other areas where you say, you know what, perhaps that's something that would be better served by somebody else, either internally within the organization or externally, and look to create that team. Just as you would in any good sport team, you don't kind of say, listen, I'm going to be an attacker, I'm going to be a defender, I'm going to be a midfielder, I'm going to do everything. You just don't, right? You kind of say, this is what I'm good at. And I think that's something we've really focused on here, and something that's really rung true over the last sort of, 5 to 8 years with us here, where we've really developed those skills and those specialties. And I think, we can now confidently look at it and say we can deliver wherever the economy, wherever the market is. We've now got, such a good, high-performing team that, we want to launch a new building. We know exactly how we're going to do it. We've got the right people there, the right team. We want to, take on another real estate office. We can do that, whatever it is. I think really is something that, we've set ourselves up to be able to deliver on the future.
Because you obviously do finance, you also do property management. I'm sure there's a lot of other services you get into as well, which, as you mentioned, are all complementary to the core business, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, building apartments, selling property.
Yep. And I think that's, as I said, you need to have a why, right? And you got to think about it. What is that you're actually trying to create? Sure, in business, you got to say at the end of the day, people are in business to make a profit. Like, we can't sugarcoat it. Anyone that says, "Oh no, I'm here for the arts and so forth," they're making it up, right? We're in the Western world. It's all about a profit motive, but I think it's also about saying, I want to deliver on that profit, but with a particular vision in mind, with something that you can also look back and say, "Hey, we did that in a way that we can be proud of and we can be happy with." And so that's where I said it sort of got down to, look, you could try to do everything and you could do very little, and finding that right balance of saying, where can we add value as an organization? Where can we add value with the right team members? And where does it all feed back into that goal? So, people say to me, why are you in property management? And we talk about saying, well, we're about helping people create a home. So that home for them might be an investment property. And we're about saying we want to make sure that you've got the right team that can deliver on the way that, you want that property managed, get the right tenants and really sort of deliver on that vision that you might have had in your mind when you brought the property in the first place. And it might be one of our homes. It might be, a 20-year-old property they brought.
Might be multi-purpose. You want to live in it and rent it out part-time. So I guess it comes down to, I think, when you're a good CEO it's like a coach, you identify what you're strong at. What plays do you need? You are a great striker, using your analogy. What's a good midfielder? What's a good defender? How do I cultivate a winning team? And I think in my 18 years experience as well, I think that was always been the biggest challenge in running a business.
Yeah.
How do I find the winning team? What am I great at? Where are my inefficiencies at? And how do I recruit to that strength?
Yeah. Yeah, look, and I think you got to be, you got to know your customers. So whatever business you're in, at the end of the day, the customers are your lifeblood. Without sales, you can deliver the best product. You can have the best customer service. You can have the best marketing. But if you're not actually creating something that the customers want, or you're creating the right product for your customer market, you're going to fail. And, that's something that's really, I'd like to say that it was completely strategic and I knew exactly what we were doing, but it wasn't. We sort of fell into some of these areas where we said, look, we think that might be a good fit. Property management, for example, you'd be shocked that one of the best things out of that business is we actually know how people live in our buildings.
Which means you can design them a certain way and sell them easier.
Exactly.
Now that you're saying that, it makes so much sense. And as soon as you said it, I thought, bang, what a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Because you're getting so much feedback from the actual tenants or other prospective buyers. And if you think about it, when you get into that path, wow. And the finance arm, and I thought when I started in accounting a few years ago, one of my mentors, who was funny enough, the first episode of Relentless, he's one at Kevin France. I have a few business mentors and I'm sure you've got a few and I'd like to touch on that as well.
Yeah.
Said, Chris, you need to develop an ecosystem to make it very, very easy for you to do business, the clients do business with you, but be like an octopus. It's very, very hard for them to disengage.
Yeah.
Have a lot of service or offerings. And it's exactly what you're talking about now. It's like listening to
look,
Kevin.
it's amazing. You've got to still have the key things, like you've got to have a distribution network. You've got to have a good product, regardless of, you might know everything about your customer and still build a crappy product or a crappy service. It's not going to help you. But it's amazing how momentum builds momentum, right? You sort of go, right, this is how the people are living. You then look at, our facilities management business and we say, right, strata levies in high density buildings. Nobody likes strata levies, right? I actually think they're great because I hated a house. You got maintenance, you got to take bins out, you got to clean gutters, you got this, you got to get that. Strata levies to me, you pay them once a quarter and it's done. It's nothing. But we look at it and we say, well, you know what? There's some really bad strata managers and there's some okay strata managers. And ultimately, as a good builder developer, if we have a look and we say, right, that was a really cool pool, but it cost about 5 times more to maintain than this pool. And I look at them both and I say, over a 20-year hold horizon, that's a lot of money. Perhaps just temper what you do in some things, think about the materials that you do and that feedback loop. I think that's probably been the biggest thing, if we look back, what's changed from, 15 years ago is having that really strong feedback loop means that, whilst we might not launch a new project every day of the week, you're still really in touch with what's going on. You've got a good feeling. And that's how, like today, anyone in the building industry will tell you, you got builders going bust, prices through the roof. It's near impossible to get anything to make financial sense. Don't get me wrong, it's tough for us, but it's different because we understand those challenges. We say, well, look, we've got our finger on the pulse and we know that this is what's costing a lot or doing this is hard. let's just adapt and understand, right, well, what is actually important for the customers? And what are the things that are must-haves, those that are nice to have, and those that don't matter? And just adapt and adjust and deliver on what they need. And that's, like any good business, anything you do, you've got to be able to adapt. Like in sporting, like fighting, you have a game plan. You go out and, 10 minutes in and you say, I've thrown that game plan in the bin because it didn't work. You've got to be able to adapt on the spot and change
and think.
And, you need to be nimble and quick like that.
But that level of detail, obviously, it says a lot. And I love hearing stuff like that. So going back to that, obviously finding all that information, setting up all these businesses, you've worked in a lot of markets and delivered over 4,000 apartments. How do you get that feedback to ensure that you are going to deliver a good product, a new market? Because things are changing constantly. Mm-hmm. How do you stay relevant or making sure that you are delivering a good product?
Yep. Look, I think that goes back to what I said about having the right team and understanding what you're good at. So for us, we are high density developers. We're not townhouse developers. We're not luxury $4-5 million apartment developers. We could do all that and we could probably do a good job, but we've kind of said, look, we know what we're really good at. We know what we're focused on. We know what our ecosystem is built around, and let's just focus on that and do it really, really well, and don't deviate from that plan too much. As we've grown and we've evolved, and the balance sheet gets stronger and stronger, we've been able to now focus on saying things like, can we find the next site that we want to look at? Let's have something where we can actually create that whole precinct. So don't just have a single stage development. Can we have something where we can integrate some multiple stages? We can really deliver some really cool and necessary key sort of infrastructure, like a bit of a convenience style supermarket in there. Can we get a childcare centre? Can we get, some open space, a park, all those kind of things that make a great area and build that on that community? That's sort of that next evolution of saying, right, we want to do better. We want to learn from what we've done really well, the things that have worked there. And if we actually say, well, if we can do one stage, we can invest more up front in some of these core, infrastructure things and services there, and then continue to deliver multiple stages. That's something that I think is that sort of next evolution. And we've got a number of those sites that we've acquired over the last sort of 5 years. They're going to give us that ability to really do that well. And I think if you look at some of those good quality developers, that's what they do, and they do it really well. They're about having that quality and having the confidence to invest that money up front, knowing that they'll deliver.
They'll get a return and they'll be able to sell it. So you're big on education, you're big on sports, you're very successful. I have to ask the question, being in business now, I'm quite sure you'll have many mentors or people that advise you and guide you throughout your career.
Yeah, look, there's been a lot over the years. Obviously for the last, 14 plus years, Mario Salvo, who founded the company, obviously the biggest person in my life over that last period, as far as it goes from a mentor. And, I've had a number of others over the years, but I think one of the things that I've really got out of spending time with Mario is that he said to me, I'm not a property developer, I'm a businessman. And I said, but we're doing property. He said, I said before that, he ran the Europe car rental business was his before he sold out of that. And he said, I wasn't a car rental man, I'm a businessman. And I used to think, what are you going on about? And it only sort of, the more that you think about it, he was very much about saying, I'm not, determined by the industry I'm in, the particular product or service I'm providing. I'm a businessman because all businesses are the same. And it's around that sort of core concept of knowing your customer, having the distribution, creating the sales, delivering on the product or the service that you you sort of go out and say that you'll do, and doing it to the right level of service. Because sometimes people want to have the best product, but they don't meet what the market wants, and it ends up being less successful because they're over delivering on some things people don't want. So, he's been, I think, the most important mentor over my time, because he's been so different. Everybody else has been a very industry focused person, and there's been some great people. I've learned a lot, but they've had very, laser focused advice and thoughts and so forth that have been really useful. But it was probably just that whole flipping the mentality around to say, don't just accept that's just the way we do it. Always be sort of questioning, but why not? We'll hear all the time, oh, that's just the way that we do it. But why? It might be the best, but just ask that question, why?
Always be asking. I actually have a saying I say, always be closing, as I love sales, but I created very similar, always be asking, and I actually hashtag that all the time because it's about being curious and asking questions. I've got to ask because I'm really fascinated, because a lot of people are industry focused and people talk about their passion, their purpose. Obviously, if his passion, I'm thinking and I'm asking, I guess, is business. It's not a specific product. It's a distribution. It's a client. It's a very fascinating way to think, because people say it's real estate, it's finance, it's cars, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
He's just totally flipped that. I guess there's a difference in the way a millionaire or a billionaire thinks.
100%. And I think that's
incredible.
The change in that mindset to say, don't constrain yourself, because you also are not open to other opportunities. As we were talking before, sure, all the other businesses we've built up over the last, 13, 14 years are complementary to our core development business. But you've also got to be open to say, what property developer do you talk to that says, oh yeah, I broker home loans, right? They either say, oh, who writes home loans? Or they just say, but why? I build stuff. What do I need to worry about that? And that's part of saying I'm a businessman. I'm delivering something, and I'm delivering for my customers. I'm understanding what do the customers want, and that's a mind shift a lot of people don't make, and that's okay. But it just means that you're not going to be open.
A lot of people might not understand that concept. It's very deep and high level thinking. I'm not in real estate. I just happen to have sold 4,000 apartments. It's actually, it's fascinating. It's incredible when you think about it and you say it out loud. We'll have to leave it there because we're at the end of the episode, but we will come back. This will be a 2-part episode. Look forward to sharing more insights with you and James.